Okay, hello and welcome back to another news video for Final Fantasy XIV. This time we're going to be looking at the full announcement of future housing coming to the game and the reason behind the Leve or Leve turn-in checkbox. And this is basically quite a big lengthy lodestone page. I will link this in the description of this video, but I thought we would read this through. We looked at this news before when they just posted the bulletins on Twitter, but it has much more depth and much more meaning behind the decisions they're making going forward, and I thought this would be definitely interesting to read together. So it says, "Hello everyone, this is producer and director Naoki Yoshida. On 11th of August, we were able to release patch 5.3 without any major problems. That said, there are two announcements I wish to make that I feel couldn't wait." He says, "For new confirmation on Checkbox for Leve quests. Patch 5.3 introduced a number of additions and adjustments aimed toward new players to make the game's various systems more intuitive, one of which was a confirmation checkbox when trading high-quality items to NPCs. However, because the process for trading items was designed to be shared by various UI elements, an unfortunate side effect of this change is that it also applies to the completion of Leve quests and Grand Company supply and provisioning missions, which players commonly complete using high-quality items. The most obvious consequences of this change are," and they put in red text, "players must check the confirmation box every time they complete these quests and missions," which can be very bothersome, you can say that again, "and turning in Leve quests takes more time, considerably lowering player efficiency." That's another good point. "To address these two issues, we're working to make further adjustments to the handling of item turn-ins so that Leve quests and supply and provisioning missions are processed separately. Once ready, we will release a hotfix at the end of August. I realize this means you will have to wait roughly 10 days for this issue to be addressed, and I'm terribly sorry for the inconvenience this causes. Rest assured, we're working to alleviate this problem as quickly as possible." So another 10 days or so from the date of this. So this was posted literally today. So we're looking at the 27th. I think it is the 27th, 10 days from now. Yeah, basically the 27th of August, which is just, it's on the last week, pretty much of August. Yeah. But it's honestly, as much as it does hinder a lot of situations with players, I do find that, it's not something we need necessarily as soon as possible. It's nice to see they're addressing it as quickly as possible, but I don't know how many people are affected by this. Quite a lot of people probably, but, it's good to see that they're addressing it. I just personally don't think they need to beat themselves up about it too much. It was a good idea, but unfortunately, like a lot of good ideas, there's always an element that you don't necessarily think about or plan about. And that's just an example of how they're reacting and developing depending on the feedback they get. And, obviously they realize that that is a bit of an issue. So the second part to this is the housing shortages and a rising player population. It says, "Now that patch 5.3 is finally here and the game's free trial has been expanded, there has been a marked increase in the number of people playing, for which we are extremely grateful. That said, automatic housing demolition has been suspended due to the spread of COVID-19 and the economic effects of various cities going into lockdown, which has caused housing to become increasingly scarce as the player population continues to climb. Not to crime, I don't know where I was going there with my head. To all of our players, especially those who have newly begun their adventures in 14, I apologize for the present lack of housing." So the first bit is improving data centers to allow for additional plots. To support the addition of housing plots, all data centers will require additional servers. We are making preparations to account for the cost of these additional servers, but due to restrictions on shipments from Japan to other countries due to COVID-19, as well as the potential necessity of quarantine upon entry and re-entry to different countries, work to ready the servers is slow going. So that's the first thing. The first attempt is to allow for much bigger servers, which gives us additional plots. And it says provisional measures. In light of difficulties in improving the data centers, the development team is doing what it can to further optimize the servers to allow for the addition of as many housing plots as we can by the release of patch 5.4. We will make a follow-up announcement when we've finalized the timetable for these additions and have determined how many can be added. He says, again, I wish to apologize for the inconvenience and trouble caused by the aforementioned changes to the game's UI and lack of housing. We will continue to do all we can to see these issues addressed as swiftly as we are able. Until then, we wish you all the fun times on your continued adventures in 14. End quote. So, firstly, it has to be mentioned that this is a problem that unfortunately has been prevalent in Final Fantasy XIV way before the COVID-19 outbreak, in my personal opinion, and it's really depending on what server you're on. In my opinion, based on facts of where I play on Ragnarok, which is quite a heavily populated server on Chaos Data Center. The housing shortage is to the point where there is no houses, and the majority of the apartments are also taken up. A lot of people only have access to a room inside a free company, and that obviously makes free companies with a large house and, you know, the amenities and looks good and has, you know, access to that sort of housing, that, you know, room system, very, very valuable. We've actually had a lot of new members, you know, for many reasons, but they've all pretty much had a room as well. It gives them a slice of the game to play and, you know, place a lot of the collectible housing items that you get as course of the main storyline progression and elsewhere from dungeons, and, you know, they give you housing items pretty much at every turn, so it makes sense to have somewhere to put them down. On the flip side, places like Spriggan and other less populated servers, servers that are relatively new or servers that are just less popular, do actually have quite a lot of housing availability. So servers such as Spriggan, because they're brand new, Lewiswarm, mostly because for other reasons, people are just not, you know, that bothered about housing by the looks of it, or the population's low enough that I don't think people really care. I had a look around the plots there. There's plenty of space for people to get houses on that server. So it's really dependent on the population of the server. I do find that since 5.3 we have had a large influx of people on all of the servers, but from what I've seen, they're all pretty much joining the servers that have the higher populations. I mean, it makes sense. If you have a higher population of people, then you're going to have a better time in terms of finding people to play with, especially if you want to join a free company, or, you know, don't want to have to deal too much with cross server play. So it's really one of those things, isn't it? Like, how do you deal with a system that unfortunately didn't have the perfect sort of plan from the start to allow for additional plots? They're making the, you know, they're squeezing everything they possibly can out of the current server system, but adding new server blades, I suppose, is, you know, a very costly measure. But what other ways would you implement housing? How would you change housing for the better? We talked about that in a previous video, obviously the first time that this news came to light, obviously not as much detail as this time, and a lot of people were, you know, pretty much asking, how does adding more plots, there was two sides to it. Some people were like, how does adding more plots solve the housing problems? And then there were also people saying the opposite of that. How does not it solve housing problems? Well, yes, it's more of a short-term solution. You see, if you were to add, let's say, 50 new wards to Ragnarok, okay, across all of the, you know, 50 per zone, I can guarantee that if they go live at, you know, 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, by the time it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, okay, when people come home from work, there will be not a single house available in any single housing zone. And that sounds ridiculous, right? Imagine 50 plots, right, per housing area. That's a lot of plots, but I can guarantee you that it still wouldn't be enough simply because of the demand on the larger population servers. And it might be crazy, but at the same time, they're adding all of that. You see what I mean? If they add, let's say they add 10 new plots to every zone, okay? Or like 2 wards worth to every zone, every housing zone, right? This applies to every single server. So places like Spriggan that currently don't have a population that would even remotely use that housing, as far as I'm aware anyway, apart from the large plots that they'd all move to, of course. There's so many small plots. If they're adding 10, or like 2 wards worth to every single zone on every single server, yes, you're going to be needing bigger servers. What could be a potential fix to this is to have different housing availability size depending on the population of a server. So Ragnarok would need the maximum possible, right? But Spriggan at the moment doesn't, so they could turn that off. They wouldn't need to turn on any extra housing for that particular server, right? Maybe a little bit more, but not that much more. They could have it depending on the server, and as the server grows and housing demand increases, it's very easy to see which plots are taken and which aren't. You can increase that value as you go along. So I don't know. It seems like they're giving themselves more work, personally, but that just might be my opinion. Maybe it's not a viable option to do one a different size than another. Maybe it'll start more problems than they had at the first place. I don't know. Let me know what you think. What would your solution be to this problem? And we'll probably talk about this on the next tea time. So I will be probably screenshotting a lot of your answers to talk about them. Thank you kindly for watching this video. Enjoy the rest of your day. Links in the description, and I'll see you all next time.